Mm-hmm. And I mean, the author demonstrates a phenomenal, deep grasp of the impossible legal catch-22s surrounding defamation for public figures. But to maximize the impact of this excellent core analysis, some structural and tonal realignments are just absolutely necessary.
Yeah, we had to look at the macro structure first, because the abrupt shift from the detailed analysis of online defamation to the documentary promotion fractures the overarching narrative of the piece.
Right. It really does.
Like, if you look at the first 80% of the material, it's this intense, highly focused breakdown of Matt Walsh defending Erika Kirk and the burden of proving actual malice.
Yeah, and the failure of independent media, which is brilliantly done.
Exactly. It's handled with such surgical precision, but then without any warning whatsoever. The piece derails into an advertisement for a JTV documentary about the theological inseparability of Judaism and Zionism.
Yeah, reading that transition actually gave me thematic whiplash.
Right?
Because I was fully invested in this contemporary legal quagmire, the internet algorithms and all that. And I turned the page expecting the conclusion of that legal thought, but instead I'm suddenly reading about ancient historical texts.
Yeah.
Reading this feels like being immersed in a gripping legal thriller that suddenly turns into a theological textbook in the final chapter. We need to make sure the reader isn't suffering from thematic whiplash.
Exactly. Because there is zero connective tissue between combating online slander involving like Jeffrey Epstein fabrications and defining the fundamental architecture of Zionism.
No, none at all.
So the suggestion here is that the author must either split this text into two entirely separate, self-contained pieces of content or construct a robust, overarching thematic bridge that ties both subjects together under a single unified banner.
Okay, so let's break those options down. Splitting it seems like the easiest fix, right?
Oh, for sure. That's option A. You just end the first piece purely on the call for audience discernment regarding online creators.
Which is a really strong ending on its own.
It is. You let that stand as a powerful, self-contained essay, and then you use the JTV segment strictly as standalone promotional content for a completely different audience.
Right, but I mean, let's assume the author fundamentally believes these two issues have to be together.
Mm-hmm.
If they refuse to split it, how do they build that bridge? Because right now, they feel light years apart.
Yeah, so option B is thematic bridging. You would frame the entire piece around a central theme, like the age of disinformation.
Oh, okay, so you introduce that global concept right up front.
Exactly. You tell the reader exactly what the essay is actually about from sentence 1. Then, you use the Erika Kirk defamation case as case study A, right?
Showing interpersonal, algorithm-driven lies.
Yes, and once that analysis is done, you bring in the separation of Judaism and Zionism as case study B, which acts as your example of historical and ideological distortion.
That makes so much sense. So you explicitly show your work to the reader. You're saying, look, disinformation doesn't just destroy individual reputations, it distorts the foundational history of entire peoples.
Exactly. That completely recontextualizes the final 20% of the piece. But even if they fix that structure, we still have to talk about how the message is being delivered.
The tone.
Right. The tone. The persuasive power of the excellent legal analysis is actively undermined by the repetitive use of emotionally charged ad hominem language.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
I mean, the material brilliantly deconstructs the impossibility of defamation lawsuits. It details the difficulty of proving a negative, proving malice, proving damages.
And avoiding the Streisand effect, which was a great point.
Such a good point. But this clinical expert breakdown is just buried under repetitive venting.
Right. Like calling journalists nutcases.
Yes, or referring to detractors as broke bastards. When you do that, you narrow the audience strictly to those who already agree with you, completely alienating neutral readers looking for objective analysis.
Well, let me just challenge that for a second, though.
Sure.
Is there a risk that by adopting the exact same inflammatory tone as the independent creators the piece is criticizing, the author accidentally validates their exact style of media?
That is precisely the issue. You hit the nail on the head. You're trying to dismantle sensationalism by being sensational. It creates massive cognitive dissonance.
Right. It's like submitting a pristine forensic accounting report to a jury, but screaming it at the top of your lungs.
Exactly. The jury just stops looking at the math. So the suggestion here is to elevate the language to match the sophisticated nature of the legal argument.
So tone it down?
Well, not just tone it down. Replace the emotional venting with sharper, more clinical, rhetorical takedown that maintain the author's passionate intent without sacrificing credibility.
Okay, I like that. So what does that look like in practice? Let's take the nutcase comment about Liz Crocken.
Right. So instead of calling Liz Crocken a nutcase, you highlight her specific departure from journalistic standards. You point out her failure to use the word allegedly and how she definitively states absurd claims as fact.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's so much more devastating. You're proving she's a bad journalist instead of just calling her a crazy person.
Exactly. It's unassailable.
And what about the broke bastards line? Because the author is talking about a real problem there, the fact that you can't sue someone who has no money.
Yeah, it's a terrifying legal dilemma. But instead of venting about broke bastards, you frame the economic reality as a sharp, tragic point of law.
Okay, how?
You write something like, the ultimate tragedy of civil recourse is that the most prolific spreaders of misinformation are often judgment-proof, lacking the assets to make a lawsuit financially viable for the victim.
Oh, that is so much better. It conveys the exact same frustration, but you sound like a clear-eyed expert instead of someone with a personal vendetta.
Right. It forces the reader to look at the broken legal system, not at the author's anger.
Which brings us to the final impression the piece leaves, right? The so what of it all?
Yeah, the conclusion. Because right now, positioning individual discernment as the sole solution to systemic media failure leaves the argument feeling unresolved and anticlimactic.
Totally unresolved. I mean, the text successfully and terrifyingly, honestly, argues that legacy media has lost credibility and that independent creators are strictly driven by clicks.
Creating this dangerous vacuum where AI and algorithms just amplify lies.
Right. But then to conclude that the only fix is for individuals to have some integrity?
It feels like offering a Band-Aid for a gaping wound.
Yeah. If the algorithm inherently rewards the lie, as the text rightly points out regarding influencers planting seeds of doubt for engagement, isn't asking the individual to simply be better, ignoring the very mechanics of the platforms we are forced to use?
It ignores them completely. It doesn't match the massive scale of the algorithmic and legal problems that were just described with such precision.
So how do we fix that? Because that's a huge problem to solve in a concluding paragraph.
Well, the suggestion is to expand the conclusion to offer institutional, technological, or community-based frameworks for navigating this disinformation, giving the audience a much more satisfying and concrete call to action.
Okay, so concrete examples. If they want to lean into the legal stuff, could they propose a legal reform?
Absolutely. They could propose a theoretical legal reform, such as lowering the actual malice standards specifically for undeniable AI deepfake.
Oh, that's brilliant. That directly uses the legal analysis from the first half.
The notes.
Right. Frame that as a scalable middle ground between the old legacy gatekeepers and the total chaos of the independent creator space.
Yes. And look, if the author really truly believes that individual responsibility is the key, they can keep that. But they need to suggest a specific framework for the audience to adopt.
So not just use your discernment.
Right. Give them a tool, like suggest instituting a personal 24-hour rule before sharing sensational algorithmic claims.
I love that. It gives the reader something tangible to do today. It turns a vague idea into an actionable habit.
Exactly. It equips them to fight the system.
All right, let's quickly recap the 3 main actionable takeaways from today's critique. First, unify the disjointed themes by building a thematic bridge, or just split the piece into 2 separate works.
Yep.
Second, elevate the tone to match the high quality of the legal analysis. Ditch the ad hominem attacks for clinical takedowns. And third, provide a more robust, systemic conclusion rather than relying solely on individual discernment.
And honestly, we warmly invite the listener to implement these strategies, revise their material, and submit it back into the show for another critique.
Yeah, we'd love to see it. Keep sharpening that prose. Until next time.